Oh, hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy Show. Fun game. Kind of. Who cares, really? That's the real answer. Who gives a shit? We got DFS, we have betting. Spags, I'm not saying that in a way that like I don't want to be here. Of course not. I'm saying that in the sense of, do we really care what game it is? We're all here. We're all playing Showdown tonight. I already have multiple bets posted on Tails. It doesn't matter. And I'll be the first person to tell you, I'm the biggest fan of slop games on Thursday Night Football. Give me a Browns-Jaguars game over a Bills-Chiefs game any day of the week. I know I'm in the minority. I know I'm on an island out there screaming into the void, but I prefer those type of games. I've had better success doing those type of games. So you could twist my arm and tell me that Broncos is a 9.5-point favorite against the Raiders isn't all that bad.
Well, I think it's just tough to open a video going, who gives a shit? Like, I think even no matter what the framework that you're giving is going to be, I think you got it back on track, though. And I do think it's interesting to be playing this slate today, coming off of Monday Night Football, where Loughy and I did the Live Before Lock show. Defenses, we talked a lot, like nobody's going to play defenses. Loughy, what was in the winning lineup? I believe it was, in fact, both defenses on a slate where everybody's like, you can't play defense. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to go nuts. Cardinals D makes it with some sacks, picks, whatever. Cowboys D makes it. Similar combo, the defensive touchdown on a block punt. It's one of those things where this is going to be a slate where everybody plays defense, and it might not be one where you want to play defense. And that's the fun push-pull we have in showdowns. People miss every single time.
You might be right. I actually capped defense. I still had defense, but I capped them. I had a good night, but nothing crazy. I will say, though, you knock the intro there, but you as much as anybody understands, when you come on here, you turn the camera on and you do this many shows every single week, right? For the same sport, which I love, by the way. If the football season could go 365, you'd never hear a complaint from me. You got to mix things up a little bit. You know, you can't just come in with the same kind of vanilla style intro and then people get bored. They tune out. They might even go elsewhere. So you come hit them with something like that, the ears perk up a little bit. You know, it's all part of the game, man. It's all part of the recipe.
It is ear catching, though. I mean, like, I think the most ear catching would be like if you open every video like PT Barnum and you're like, you're not going to believe the things we're going to unfurl before you on this video. Like that's the sales pitch you should go.
But I hate that, man.
Who gives a fuck about this fucking
I don't hate PT Barnum, but the idea of coming in and every show just being like, we've got a great show for you today, great video, lots to talk about. I mean, if you say that every time, people are just going to be like, but do you? You know, you can't, every show you can't come in and say is going to be great. You can't say every show is as good as the one before it or is going to be as good as the one after it. You just kind of take it in stride. I don't know. Whatever. We got a fun game. And if we didn't, Spags, who gives a shit? Let's talk about the Raiders.
We're all going to die anyway, as we always say on here on the Showdown Strategy shows. It doesn't matter. Let's gamble. We'll all be dead soon.
That's what we say.
Yeah, that's the catchphrase of the show. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, appreciate you guys as always. If you don't mind, take a second, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, atone for your sins this fine morning. Ray, are you okay? Yeah, dude. Literally how I am every single day, man. Where have you been? But yeah, it's a fun one, and we're gonna dive into it. As Garrett Bitter said, yes, atone for your sins. Hit the thumbs up. If you think this content helps you along the way, we appreciate you hanging out and supporting the channel. I think Spags would agree as well. By the way, one game NBA slate today, so we're the only show in town for the most part.
Oh, Josh couldn't get up for a strategy show for that one. He couldn't do 1 hour. I mean, he could. He absolutely could.
He did. I just don't know if anyone, like, it's a showdown. Yeah, it's a showdown. So.
Well, it's also a showdown where the Clippers already ruled out Harden and Kawhi, which is hilarious because this is like an island game, I presume, on national TV. And it's like, yeah, they're not playing their two stars. And Harden's absence too is like personal too. So he just went back to the strip club, broke up with the girlfriend that we found out on the Netflix show, and maybe just hit in the club. So yeah, one gamers on both sports today.
Yep. Okay, let's get into it. 1 second here. Now let's get into it. All right, so Yeah, the biggest question I have going into this game is Brock Bowers. Not the question of do you play him or not, but the question of I have an immense amount of respect for Vance Joseph. I would assume you do too, as a defensive coordinator. Like they went into last year. I don't know if you guys remember this, right? So I don't want to 1984 style memory hole. What was the expected of the Denver Broncos defense last year? But I will remind all of you, what was expected was, and here, this was all of the rhetoric surrounding the Denver Broncos defense, which ended up finishing as a top 3, arguably the best defense in the league, was the Broncos defense is in full rebuild mode outside of the one cornerstone, foundational piece in Patrick Surtain. That was what was said leading up to the season. Everybody was regurgitating the same talking points. And then what happened? Well, they had one of the best pressure rates in the league, and they rushed 4 at a higher clip than any team in the league. Riley Moss, as a rookie white cornerback, ended up being, you got to throw that in there because there's a resurgence there.
There are more than ever. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Ended up being a great rookie corner. Surtain wasn't he the reigning defensive player of the year?
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe
I don't follow that stuff at all.
I thought it was last. Whatever. You get my point, right? They came in and they dominated. And then this year, they rush 4. They have the highest pressure rate in the league. Rush 5. They have the second, or bring 5. They have the second highest pressure rate in the league. And Geno Smith has been bad under pressure, but no Surtain. And in the second meeting last year between these two divisional teams, Vance Joseph shadowed Brock Bowers with Patrick Surtain. So what should we expect to see today in this spot now that Jacoby Myers is gone? To me, it's the most fascinating part of the entire slate.
Well, we don't have Surtain today, right? He's out a couple weeks.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have him to stick on Bowers. But Vance Joseph's also a very good defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, all the numbers that you're saying, they're still holding true this year for sure. I mean, I color code my sheets, people that know from my Splash Play channel that are so lucky to pay for the privilege of all the data I cobble together. It's all red, basically bad things going against a tough defense, red going against a good defense where it's a favorable matchup. You're facing the Cowboys, you're facing Miami. It's all green. Denver, it's just red everywhere. They're creating pressure at a 28% rate, and they're only blitzing 27% of the time, so they're creating pressure more. They're frankly due to get more sacks, only a 5% sack rate despite that high of a pressure rate, so the pressure to sack's a little bit low. Going against Geno, a guy who does generally drop back a lot. I think there's a lot of variance on the side today where people will certainly be playing the Broncos side. Vegas has a 17-point total. Broncos D is a defense people think are good, Surtain or not. I think people are going to go there heavy, but I'd say there's a lot of volatility to the spot because of the fact that Geno does drop back so often. If he can kind of keep staying on the good side of things where the Broncos create pressure, but he gets the ball out, doesn't take sacks, doesn't commit, colossal errors, I think there's upside for Geno. But you're right that on paper, this Broncos defense across the board, they check every box for stuff that I worry about when facing a defense on a main slate. Very low catchable ball rate at 75%. They're deflecting passes at a 10% rate as well. And if you're deflecting passes, it's about as close to interception as you can get. And they're also probably due to run better in interceptions, only a 1% rate there. A league average is just shy of 3. So I think this is a really fragile spot today for Geno, but one, people are going to play the obvious side because the Broncos just destroy him. And I think you probably make more money today playing Geno find success against a Broncos defense that people think can't be beaten.
I don't disagree. Actually, I'd go a step further and I'd say I think you can do both. I mean, Broncos defense with Geno is not a crazy idea today at all. And, the one thing that's a little bit alarming with Geno this year, he leads the league in interceptions, which, whatever, it's not good, right? You don't want to see that. But what I don't like to see is that when you look at how he's performed under pressure, he's been pressured 37%, middle of the road, but he's thrown 5 interceptions under pressure, 5.7 yards per attempt, 50% completion percentage. And the fact that Denver, here's my thing, Spags, Denver can send 4, and they by far have the highest pressure rate in the league when they send 4. When you only send 4, it means you can drop more guys back in pressure. So in coverage. So if you're getting pressure by bringing 4, and now you can still hang a guy back and focus more attention on a guy like Brock Bowers, that could indicate a long night for Geno. Now, that's only one way to look at it, right? Maybe they find great ways to scheme Bowers open because he's just ridiculously good and there's no Surtain. But there is also an element there. Like if you're a team that can get that much pressure with four guys, and outside of Bowers, who do you really have? It could spell pretty bad things for Geno as well.
Yeah, and there's also the possibility that maybe you have to keep Bowers in the block a little bit more, and that's something that could have a trickle-down effect for just him getting out there. People, obviously, the game for Bowers last week where they finally, kind of built the plane out of Brock Bowers, which felt like they should have been doing since last year when he first emerged, but it didn't seem to be the case this beginning part of the season. In that spot, too, he still played one less snap than Michael Mayer did. So you do have those kind of things with Bowers where, the assumption is that he's going to go nuts again, no matter what the matchup is. I think by some people, I will play the field tonight. That said, I think that he might just be in an adverse situation. So I think there's a lot of, like I mentioned, like there's really upside on both sides. And I think if you're playing a 150 max today, playing a 20 max, I would be trying to consider how do the Raiders find pass game success, because nobody's going to play that angle enough against this Broncos defense. But it's also like if the Raiders, just get their ass kicked, who gets impacted the most? And Bowers at his ownership, he's probably the guy that has the most ability to just kind of be affected by the defense, pressure, stuff like that, and also just be overplayed because of what he did last week, where he went absolutely nuts, and people now think that he's the best tight end in football again.
Right. To be fair, he might be. He probably is. I mean, like from a pass catching perspective.
On a better team, he'd be even better. Just on this team,
for sure,
we're going to run into spots where it's probably not going to work out, no matter how good he is.
Maybe they keep Michael Mayer in the block more. I don't mind Mayer, though. I think his price point is too cheap. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. I actually already posted. I don't know if any of you guys tailed it yet with the one-click tail bet option we have over on Tails. Hopefully you did. If it loses, hopefully you didn't. But it's over there. I posted it this morning. And Pete Carroll said it too. They want to run 12 personnel, Spags. There's no doubt about it. They want to run 12 personnel. They ran more 12 personnel last week than any other week on the season. You mentioned the snaps there, right? Michael Mayer played 83% of snaps. Brock Bowers played 82, 81, whatever, 81, I think it was. But you get the point. Brock Bowers obviously is the top dog here, no question. But you saw Mayer targeted on 23% of routes run. That's a good number. He was second in raw targets with 7 behind Bowers. Not only that, he ran a route on 72% of dropbacks. And, I think they want to use him more. You have no Jacoby Myers. So if you ask me, even if Michael Mayer does have to be kept in to block more, which I would assume you'll see some of that for sure, you could also just try and get the ball out quicker. But even with all of that in mind, if he's going to be on the field as much as we saw, and I think he maybe even more with no Jacoby Myers, because I simply don't see Dante Thornton Jr. and Jack Betch as just like plug and play options to replace a Jacoby Myers. You have Trey Tucker, you have Genty, who's been, hit or miss, and you obviously have Brock Bowers, but it feels like they trust Michael Mayer now, probably more than anybody else behind, Brock Bowers, and I guess you could say Trey Tucker.
Yeah, I mean, and Lockett, too, played 16, 18 snaps, something like that last week. So he played more technically than Besh and Thornton. I think it was inactive last week, but he'll be back out there this week. So, the pecking order is changing for sure. I think Tucker seems like the safest play out of all the receivers, and, certainly a guy that seems like could benefit relative to the matchup with the Broncos, where they really limit slot targets. 45% rates the slots allowed there, but that's pretty low relative to league average. But more targets out wide, which kind of makes sense. When you play a tough defense, you kind of have to take more shots downfield. That's usually your boundary receivers. So there's a shot for Trey Tucker to get going, but I would agree in terms of trust. It's like it's Bowers, Mayer being up there and playing a lot, and Mayer, frankly, getting targeted a ton. A lot of that time is without Bowers this year, but a 25% target per route run is higher than everybody else in the team besides Bowers. So, I'm with you. I think Mayer and Tucker, to me, feel the safest. I wouldn't rule out Lockett, though. They clearly brought him in for a reason. I think Evan Silva on the ETR podcast this week was saying something like, it's a Nepo thing. Pete Carroll loves Lockett. Lockett loves Carroll. They're there. But the fact that he already played last week when Besh didn't, and also Thornton was inactive, Lockett's going to be out there. And frankly, Lockett being out there might be good for the Broncos because he's pretty dusty at this point.
Yeah, that might be subtraction by addition. Right.
It's brutal. He shouldn't be playing.
Nah, he really shouldn't. But also, I mean, they don't have that many alternatives. That's kind of what we're saying. I think we're both saying the same thing, right? They don't have a ton of alternatives here. I ran the Sims, and here's what we've got at the flex. I do want to see how much Michael Mayer we have. See, 10% to me is honestly a little bit surprising. I know his props don't look great. I get that, but Spags, you and I, you go into a little bit more advanced data than I do, but you know, we're still in the same place. When you see how often Mayer was on the field last week, that's kind of indicative to me that they want to run as much 12 personnel as possible. And they also, I believe, had their best offensive output of the season, right? So I think it was. Maybe, I mean, if it wasn't their best offensive output, it was certainly up there. No, it was. It definitely was. And they still lost. But Pete Carroll talked about it after the game, like that works, you know. The 12 personnel that they're running with a healthy Brock Bowers is what they want. If I'm only getting 10% Michael Mayer, I probably boost it because I think $2,800 just is a pretty cheap price point. Now, with that in mind, this isn't one of those slates where you have a boatload of super expensive players. I totally get that too, right? Bo Nix, Ashton Genty are up there, but Bowers is sub 10K. Geno's 9K. Dobbins is 86. This is not a slate where you have multiple guys in the 11s, 6 guys at 10K plus. I get that, but I do think he frees up a decent amount of cap. And I think he's a better play than Jack Besh at a similar price point. I think he's a better play than Lockett and Pat Bryant and Adam Trotman. Do you see it differently? If so, let me know. And I'm happy to reevaluate the way I view this as well.
No, I got 16% Mayer in the sim I ran. Again, I agree that feels a little bit light to me. I just think there might be an assumption today with how people play things, and this happens a lot in in NBA, same thing, NFL. Like people just assume the guy comes in and takes over the exact role that's left behind. And I think Jack Best has a draft capital where that's a thought that he might come in and and just get routes right away and play what Jakobi Meyers did. But I don't think that's the case. I think they still like Lockett enough. They clearly brought him in for a reason. I think Best is going to get out there a certain amount. I think that Thornton's going to be out there a certain amount. They could frankly go deeper down the depth chart and it wouldn't shock me. But Mayer, again, we know last week played 50 snaps, and that's while Meyers was still on the team. So I think that for how it looks, like Mayer just being out there a lot. And also to me being like, it's not 1-to-1, but he's like your most direct pivot for Bowers. The targets that would go to Bowers kind of would go to the same area that Mayer will be in. And if Bowers were to fail as a very chalky play relative to this, slate where, nobody wants to play Raiders, Mayer's going to benefit a little bit more. So I agree. Like I'd love to get him 25, 33%, I think would be a little more appealing to me. Price tag's really cheap. Like you mentioned, you can then cram in some of the stars we want, maybe more so on the Broncos side. But really, I just think you get leverage on the pass game here for a guy that's playing 50 snaps, and snaps, the volume of snaps is always the gold that we're looking for these showdowns in particular.
Yeah. Even if he's not good, if he's on the field at that price, we'll take it. That's what all we can ask for. Brandon Bowser, Loughy, please take a second to pat yourself on the back for last Thursday. Made 2K with Marvin Harrison Jr. as captain. Made me ill, but you were 1,000% correct that he bought. Yeah, that was Monday, man. I mixed the days up as well, but that was Monday. Appreciate it though, and congrats, man. Yeah, like with Marvin Harrison, guys like Marvin Harrison are the perfect example of people who refuse to want to play guys, Spags. And then he's kind of like you have this tunnel vision. Oh, he sucks now. He's terrible. It's like, first of all, it's the Cowboys defense. It's by far the best matchup he's had all season. Jacoby Brissett isn't bad, and Marvin Harrison is cheaper than he's been. So, yeah, I mean, he was, 5% at captain owned or something like that. It's similar to what you were saying with the defenses. We took different approaches. I was heavier on Marvin Harrison. You were heavier on, I'm not going to do much with these defenses to eliminate them. And it's the same thing. You go sometimes where people aren't really comfortable going, and it works out. And when it does work out, you're going to win a lot more money than, CeeDee Lamb working out, because everyone's playing CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, and also everybody's playing that Cowboys offense, and that was something we talked about at Monday. I think in general, Loughy, when we do these shows, whether it is a live before lock on Monday or a strategy show, and this is probably true of most Stokastic content, but if you combine our takes, we literally gave the nuts away. It was just that you had to combine what you were saying with what I was saying. I was a little too stuck on Trey McBride. He ended up making the winning lineup and all that, but he didn't make it a captain. I think that, that's hopefully the value we offer here is our contrasting opinions come together like Megatron or Megazord, whatever.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. The perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the top guys go, we'll bounce around a little bit here and then we'll kind of get where we need to go. But I don't want to not talk about some of these guys up top. Bo Nix. Yeah. I don't know. I was a big Bo Nix guy coming in the last season. I'd be lying to you if I told you I was overly impressed with Bo Nix this year, though. Spags, maybe you can give me some additional stats here to tell me if I'm in the right or wrong direction. You talk about catchable ball rate. What about catchable pass rate for Bo Nix this year? Because when I look at Troy Franklin and Courtland Sutton, they're both hovering around 60% receptions this year, which should be better.
Yeah, no, you're right. It should be. Bo Nix, actually, the number is pretty low, 75.2% catchable ball rate. So this game, obviously, people have reviled Geno Smith at times. And granted, he's a little bit of a low ADOT guy, but Geno Smith is an 83.4% catchable ball rate. So he's actually been getting the ball, where it's supposed to go. Nix is not doing that. And also his guys are not completing those passes as well as they probably could. Nix's efficiency stats seem a little bit low, especially compared to what he did last year. Only a 0.01 EPA per dropback. He's running 3.7 times a game. It's kind of a thing we saw at the end of last year where Bo Nix stopped running as much. A lot of his value kind of became, in the beginning of part of the year, came from being like a Jackson Dart type where he was running a ton because he just didn't know how to run the offense. Once he figured out how to do that, he basically gave up running. And that's kind of the trends continuing for the most part this year as well. But this is a spot for him where Vegas's defense is much weaker in the secondary than versus the run game. They're actually one of the stiffest run defenses in football right now, which is kind of surprising, but a negative 0.35 EPA in the red zone, negative 0.06 EPA overall. Those are towards the best parts of the league, especially in the red zone. But then versus the pass, a 0.13 EPA per dropback, 0.14 EPA per pass. Raiders defense, one of the worst in football there. So I think it's a good spot for Bo Nix to get on track. I just think Broncos stacks are going to be played pretty crazy. But chat's talking about Troy Franklin captain. I think Sutton gets own captain. Bo Nix captain with a double stack, I think, is a pretty appealing move if you are going to play this Broncos pass game.
Yeah, so do I. Bo Nix does spread the ball around a decent amount, but it's very strange. The more I dug into guys like Troy Franklin today, Troy Franklin leads the Broncos in red zone and end zone targets this year, which is wild to me. Because I look at Courtland Sutton, I really do think he is one of the better, end zone targets in the league. He really is, but the Troy Franklin love is weird. They both have 4 touchdowns on the season. I'm not saying Troy Franklin's been bad, but man, Spags, when you look at, I'm actually going to pull it up on PFF, expected fantasy points. His expected fantasy points has to be higher with the workload that he's seen this year. I mean, it just has to be. Like, he had 27 yards on 10 targets last week. He had 19 yards on 10 targets in week 7. This is not me saying it's a reason not to play him because it's a good matchup, but like 35 yards on 5 targets, 55 on 8 targets, some really underwhelming games for Troy Franklin, despite the amount of volume that he sees in the passing game. I mean, God, dude, you should not be seeing 19, 20-yard games on 8, 10 target performances. That's wild.
Yeah, and I think it speaks the amount of deep shots he's getting as well, and frankly has not converted on them as well as I would think based on how.
2 for 14, I think. I think he's 2 for 14 on deep targets.
And he's getting 1.4 a game, which is one of the higher amounts of the league. Courtland Sutton getting 1.3. And Franklin and Nix, like part of the reason I like Troy Franklin a lot as a rookie, he didn't pay off so much in his rookie year. Came on strong at the end, but he was buried for so much of last year. Was that he was a great downfield target, really efficient at making those plays into something valuable. This year he's got a negative 0.5 EPA on deep plays, and it's hard unless you're just not connecting on deep plays to have a negative EPA. So Franklin, I agree, is underperformed. He still gets more targets per route run than everybody else on the team besides RJ Harvey. So I think for Franklin, there is a willfulness to get him the ball. And I would say against this Vegas defense, that's still the part that matters. Again, I worry whenever I see the chats like this guy captain, and it's like a lot of people saying it because that's as public as it gets. As you guys in the YouTube chat, you're just thinking the same thing. A lot of people, and me too, thinking the same thing that a lot of people playing lineups will tonight. If people are going to play Franklin heavy, I think you want to play into the downside. and maybe try some of the other guys. But if Troy Franklin's ownership's coming a little bit low, that's where you play into like, well, if he catches all the targets today, he's going to like smash the slate and actually probably make it a captain.
Yeah, right. Sure. And by the way, I just pulled it up. He is 10th in fantasy points below expectation. So there are only 9 I had a feeling there's only 9 guys with, a lower, we'll call it negative plus minus, but essentially with fewer fantasy points than expected. If you care about that metric. Jerry Jeudy is number 1 with minus 44.2 points below expectations. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's not surprising as somebody that's played Jerry Jeudy a few too many times on DFS slates. And I know Ben Rossa too, the great Ben Rossa, Dr. Ben Rossa. He's not a doctor anymore. But he's posted Jeudy enough times, and like, boy, the EV when he does hit, and Troy Franklin too, I guess, can be so high.
I know. God, expected fantasy points per game for Jeudy, 11.5. Fantasy points per game for Jerry Jeudy, 6.
It's awful.
Wow, man. That's nuts. But also, I think this can be a very noisy metric. And what I mean by that is if you have Dylan Gabriel at quarterback, this number could just as easily for Jeudy be minus 52 by next week. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to correct itself over the course of the season, right? Should it? Yeah, like you should start to see Jerry Jeudy have more than 6 fantasy points per game, with the volume of targets and all of that. But with Troy Franklin, at least you have a good enough quarterback and a good matchup today where I look at that and I say, you know what? Maybe the connection just hasn't been there. He's been a little bit unlucky. It kind of makes me feel fine about him. It doesn't make me like him less tonight.
Yeah, I mean, like for Troy Franklin, you're at least unlike Jeudy. You're seeing the ping ponging. You're seeing there be multiple days where he's won people million makers, where he's spiked massive upside over 20 plus fantasy points. So I think that's what you're hoping if you're playing him today. Yeah, with the ownership being where it is, I think you are paying for the outcome of Troy Franklin hitting, and just given the volatility there and the fact that he hasn't performed, you might be better off. Like there's something that's happened in the NBA lately where people on slates lately, the Celtics, Peyton Pritchard and Derek White just do to shoot better. They're shooting so far under league average. They were really good shooters last year, but then it's like on the slate where they're going to be, really highly owned. You probably don't want to play them because they're shooting terribly right now. On a slate where they're low owned, you're like, cool, I can play into the upside because these guys are due for positive regression. I think for Franklin today, the ownership to me kind of seems like you're getting him owned appropriately for what the upside is. But if that doesn't hit, it's a third of the field that's dead.
Yeah, I honestly thought he'd be getting more ownership than he is, if we're being honest. Like 23% on Franklin doesn't seem that much. But then you look at Sutton, 25%. They're not actually that popular. So where are the most popular plays coming from? Looking at the flex position, Bo Nix, Brock Bowers, J.K. Dobbins, Geno Smith, Ashton Genty, Broncos D, Will Lutz, all at 30+% in this pool when I ran the Sims, 25,000 in the contest. Courtland Sutton is pretty low, man.
Well, I mean, full disclosure here, projections still have Mims in. So
I was just going to say that. Yeah, he's out.
Yeah, that might mess it up a little bit where Sutton and Franklin's projection goes up just enough because Pat Bryant, I don't think takes the work directly away. I guess they could chop it up a little more. You put some more towards Ingram, but I think that's going to make the ownership come up a little bit more. And that's what I've had in my head. But yeah, you're right. Right now, if this were to hold, I would say Sutton and Franklin seem under-owned. A lot of the money is seemingly going to Bowers and Dobbins more. And well, those are two guys that I think, Dobbins in particular, with how Harvey has played, I would not want to be super above the field on Dobbins today.
I don't know if I would either. The Harvey thing has been tough to figure out, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at last week, 5 for 51. He now has a receiving touchdown in 3 straight games, Spags. RJ Harvey.
and some long ones too. Like at least one of those. Like
he had a 27-yard, I think, receiving touchdown last week. He had one reception for a touchdown for 5 yards against Dallas. He had 1 reception for 2 yards and a touchdown against the Giants. He has 4 receiving touchdowns on the season. So, I mean, there's that. But his rushing downs, I mean, outside of that game against Cincinnati where they beat up on him, he's getting nothing in the run game. I mean, it's purely J.K. Dobbins. So what do you make of the split here between Dobbins and RJ Harvey right now, especially at their respective price points?
I hate it. I mean, like I played Dobbins on a few main slates a while back because like the red zone roll is not bad. And like I wanted him to, I think he's a good enough player. And right now he's playing like one of the more efficient runners in football. He's got a 0.08 EPA per rush, does Dobbins. Harvey's at negative 0.08. So you're talking about pretty meaningful flip there for 2 guys in the same offense. Dobbins also avoiding tackles on an 18% clip in the run game. Harvey only had 13. So like in every sort of primary rushing stat you're looking for, and yards after contact does favor Harvey by a little bit. But in general, I would say the higher avoided tackle rate, higher efficiency, EPA per run. I think Dobbins has been the better back. But Harvey's still out there. Last week, 20 snaps to Dobbins getting 29. That's close enough. The red zone roll is Dobbins getting 2 intended touches a game. Harvey getting 1. That's also close enough. I think Dobbins is a good play, but I don't have enough confidence in him. And at 8,600, I think you want to have pretty strong confidence. Just wouldn't shock me if Dobbins punches one in today. And I'm sure I'll play him at least with the field. But Harvey takes enough away where I feel like in any other situation, I'd be like, Dobbins, great play today. Ignoring the Raiders' run defense being particularly good. The opportunity should be there for him to score. But Harvey just mucks it up enough that neither guy to me seems super appealing to get above the field in a major way on.
You're right. That's the best way to put it, man. He mucks it up just enough to where, it's uncomfortable. And just talking about red zone opportunities, you have 0 targets in the red zone for J.K. Dobbins this year. You have 4 for RJ Harvey, and I'm pretty sure, Spags, 3 of them came in the last 3 weeks. So that's not to say that, J.K. Dobbins won't get some cracks at it on the ground, and I would expect him to. I know Ben was snake bit by that one, but yeah, like red zone rushing attempts on the season, 18 for Dobbins, 7 goal line attempts, and then for Harvey, 5 and 2 in the red zone and at the goal line. So clearly that's still J.K. Dobbins' spot. Corbin, Red Hounds basketball from Corbin, Kentucky. All right. If you had to guess, what are the chances the winning lineup doesn't have Nix in it? Well, Spags, we don't really have to guess because outside of the Sims themselves, we also have something called the Top Showdown and Single Game Plays Tool. And as you can see right here, Bo Nix has a 20.5% chance of being the optimal captain. And he has a 54% chance of being the optimal utility play. So to answer your question, about 25%, Spags, that he would not be in the winning lineup in some form or fashion, utility or in the captain spot.
Some good improv math here, folks. That's what you saw on the fly there.
Yeah, I mean, 25.4.
Yeah, there you go. You got it. I thought that was good. I mean, there's some DFS shows, not trying to bear anybody, but I've seen it before. People like try to do math on the fly and it's like they struggle. And I'm like, how are we doing? How are we doing DFS? It's a lofty passage.
Ben's the best at like back of the head math, where me, you gotta give me the easy ones. But no, yeah, look, Bo Nix is it's likely that he'll be in an optimal lineup. It's not guaranteed. No. I mean, essentially what this tool is saying, 1 in 4 chance that he's not. It's a pretty big number.
Yeah. I mean, look, and I think the sim also gives you then exposures in line with that. So that's sort of what the whole process looks like when you are using the tools, is that you're representing what the probabilistic outcomes are, and then hopefully building lineups, especially if you're 150 maxing, but even your 20 maxes that align with that, and hopefully capturing enough uniqueness, because Bo Nix will certainly not be under-owned on the slate, even though he will have a 75% chance of making it.
Yeah, and we had a question from Chris earlier in the show asking, how much do you have to deposit in order to get access to the tools? Well, Chris, I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it again for sure. usually these deposits, you're talking about the link join that we have with the link in the description where you sign up with any of our sportsbook partners and get the Sims free for a month. And you can stack as many of those as you want, right? So if you signed up for Underdog, you sign up for Onyx, and you sign up for Caesars, that's 3 months. So you could run NFL 2 straight months consecutive, straight through the new year, which is awesome. And then you could say, you know what, I'll also take myself a month of NBA as well. And you can do that. Here was the question from Chris. You can do that for $5 or $10. I mean, I think all of the minimum deposits are $5 or $10, man. So if you use that link, you jump into that, you'll see it right here. I'll throw it on the screen for you guys. It'll bring you to this, right? So you'll see Onyx, which is a sweepstakes book. You can 40 plus states it's available in. Just choose one of these, click claim offer. Otherwise, someone DM me about this. He didn't click claim offer. He went directly. We can't track you otherwise. You got to click claim offer. And then it'll take you there. Deposit $5 or $10. Get your, by the way, like spend 10, get 100 in bonus picks. A lot of these have great match offers, 100%, and a bunch of other bonus bet offers. So you're getting that too. Then just place a bet or set a lineup if you're in a DFS in a non-legal betting state and you want to do one of these pick'em sites. Then after that bet or lineup settles, just take a screenshot of your welcome email and your first settled bet and email us at support@stokastic.com with those screenshots and tell us what you want. So here's the process, right? You signed up for Caesars, Onyx, and Fanatics, okay? Let's say total you spent $25 on all of them. Each month of the NFL Core Sims, I think, is like $150. So you spent $25 total. You send us those screenshots, and you're getting a month of the Sims for every single one of those that you signed up for. So that would equal 3 months. And that's it. You're done. 20-minute total process to do all of that. Super simple sign-up process, and then just hit us up. The toughest part is simply selecting the screenshots to add into the email. But aside from that, that's it, man. And we've had so many guys with awesome results. Low-stakes players that, you know, maybe couldn't or didn't want to pay for the tools. Like Ralph, low-stakes player, comes in, takes that, has a great performance there. Pedro played $1 here, turned the dollar into $300. And we had a huge one the other day. Kevin signed up on Caesars, $2,000 win. Just started using the tools for free after I signed up for Caesars. So, Spags, to me, I always say it, it's like the best way to do it when you may have limitations elsewhere. We're giving the tools away for free.
Yeah, and also I saw this morning a guy named Quinn won the NBA tournament yesterday for $100K, and he won by like 13 points using the Sims. I believe he like lightly tweaked projections, but just ran with it as he got. And that's what happens, is having that upside. Not that you expect that to happen, but we keep seeing people, and I get tagged in a bunch. Loughy gets tagged in even more. For people that are using the tools, whether it's for the first time or a bunch of times, and having wins, million maker winners left and right too. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not using tools, even if you just use them to understand how slates work, how the dynamics work. It's a really important part of the process that a lot of the field still is like stubbornly not using Sims, and you just keep seeing people win. And if nothing else, you're going to build better lineups. That's really the main goal.
Yeah, man. Anyway, link is down there for you guys. We had a question from Riley: Dobbins or Harvey? You kind of mentioned this. To me, the answer is still Dobbins based on the workload, Spags. But do you have a more nuanced answer there, or is it pretty cut and dry for you?
I like that Harvey's a little bit cheaper and potentially significantly less owned, given what we talked about with the volatility there. But yeah, Dobbins has the better role. If you expect the Broncos to really kick the Raiders' ass, and a lot of people will, Dobbins should be the more appealing play. I think there's room to play both, but I agree that Dobbins has the better share of what the expectations are for today's game.
Okay. Yeah, look, Harvey could end up being optimal. He's a reasonable price point. Totally get it. But I just hate the fact that everything's been dependent on a couple of receptions for touchdowns. I mean, you want to talk about insane volatility there. It's RJ Harvey, because he could just have 4 touches in this game for 6 yards.
Yeah. And I think the ownership reflects that enough. So that's part of why I'm not out on Harvey. Cause Harvey's one of those guys, sure. People were chasing him all summer in best ball and, in their redraft leagues and all that. I think those guys tend to be somewhat overplayed pretty much every slate, because people are like, this guy's got to hit at some point. And, he can hit, but the role is better for Dobbins right now. But if Harvey ends up overowned, it could be just a death march there.
Garrett Bitter, is Lockett far-fetched as captain? I absolutely think so, yeah.
Yeah, projection-wise, doesn't look the best. I mean, sim-wise, he doesn't come up. He'll be out there. I think, the fact that he got snaps last week and they did not give any to the younger guys, like, he'll be out there, but he's been really bad. He's got a negative 0.52 EPA on the year, and if you want to blame Tennessee, you can, but he was awful in Seattle last year. He's not earning targets anymore. Can't really get open. He's getting paid, though, so cool.
Yeah, it's just you need to hit on multiple fronts here. One, you need to hit on him actually getting the bulk of snaps in Jakobi Meyers' absence. Two, you need him to actually get the targets. And three, you need him to actually produce against the Denver Broncos defense in Denver. So it's not just, right? It's not just, oh, well, if he's out there, he's going to be good. It's like, no, if he's out there, they still have to actually look his way. And then if they actually look his way because he's out there, he still has to be good. And that's tough, man. That's tough. I'm not saying you don't get any at flex, but I mean, we're only getting 4% at flex right now. I'm not going to tweak it or anything. I'm not going to boost him. I'm not going to make sure I get 0. I'll probably just end up where the Sims give him to me.
I think too, if you're going to try to play like Raiders pass game has some amount of success, just play Geno at 5% owned and try to capture some of the low owned targets there, or just play Bowers in the flex with it if you want to do the chalkier option. But I think to me, like you're getting enough of a discount on the Raiders that sort of have to succeed if a game script goes a certain way. I don't think you need to play Lockett to get unique in that prism.
Yeah, I agree. Before we go to the captains and break this down, of course, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to hit us up. So Michael Mayer is my favorite option in the 3K range. I don't hate Raiders D, honestly. I don't think Raiders D is dumb. They're 10% owned. They're not good, right? They're not good, but they're not Dallas. And even Dallas last week, But Pat Bryant has a pair of end zone targets this year. So I'm not going to rule him out. Get some trace amounts of him there. Adam Troutman, I suppose, if you end up getting to a tiny bit of Adam Troutman, with Nate Atkins out, fine. Lucas Krull's on the IR, so they really only have 2 tight ends. He'll get, I guess, a little bit of work here. How many snaps did he play last week?
Who are we asking about?
Troutman played 73% of snaps, so there's nothing exciting there, Spags, but he's 1,600 on a showdown slate. And as we know, Thursdays are the obscure tight end touchdown days. Tyler Beatty, Dante Thornton, Jack Besh. Yeah, you get a little bit of all of these guys. But to me, Michael Mayer and probably Raiders defense in a short week divisional game, those would be my 1 and 2. Pat Bryant, probably my number 3. And my number 4, probably Adam Troutman, believe it or not. What about you for these cheap guys?
I think Mayer, I'm with you on that being the most appealing, though. Sim-wise, I did get Raiders the most. Whenever you see one defense and you kind of get the vibe based on total and just how people talk about these teams, that one defense is going to get really played. Playing the opposite defense is always appealing to me because that's how showdown slate work. Yeah. And Raiders D does shut down the run pretty well too, so they've at least got something going for them. Terrible in the pass game, but maybe so bad that they're almost due for it to be a little bit less bad. You can make the case for. But Mayer and Raiders, definitely the best options to me. Besh is coming up 10% in the sim. I'm okay with that. He'll get some more routes today, even though I don't think he immediately takes over Jakobi Meyers' role for the reasons we've mentioned. Pat Bryant, I think that take too. He and Besh, I would say, pretty close to even for me. And Mostert got 6 snaps last week. I don't think that matters very much, but he did play. So I guess he's not totally out of play at 1% owned. But Troutman's a much better play because he played like 45 snaps.
Right. I mean, the thing about Bryant, though, with Mims out, they didn't really just have a musical chairs style rotation at the wide receiver 3 position. Trent Sherfield got a little bit. Michael Bandy got a little bit. But Pat Bryant played 57% of snaps in that game. You saw Troy Franklin's snap share go up, actually, Spags, is what happened, right? Bandy played 6, and he hadn't been active in any games this season. But Trent Sherfield played less than he'd been playing. Marvin Mims' absence meant that Bryant went from playing, between 50 and 55% of snaps between like 50 and 60% of snaps, which we'd seen over the last month, to 79%. So he came up, and Pat Bryant stayed about the same, but they didn't really do much with Trent Sherfield or anybody else there. So I think Pat Bryant is, at the very least, is going to be out on the field a good amount of time.
Yeah, and I think you're right too. I mean, Franklin putting up 50 snaps, only the second time this year he's done that. Obviously, that could be play volume as much as anything, but that is an increase for him. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like Sutton and Franklin, like we've talked about, target wise, snap wise, they're there. But Bryant did get more of that share than I would have thought, because kind of seems to me like Bryant and Franklin are similar receivers, and I wouldn't think they play well together. But, it doesn't really matter what we think if Sean Payton's going to be willing to play Pat Bryant as that third receiver. And Bryant's been 35, 40 snaps the last 5 weeks. We haven't seen results for it, but it could happen.
Yeah. He's cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You're not paying a premium for him. Spags mentioned it, but for those of you guys who joined late, Marvin Mims is still in. So the next update, Marvin Mims will be removed from the projections. But yeah, Pat Bryant, 3,200. I'm fine with it. Let's talk about captain before we get out of here. And of course, if you guys are not, I wanted to shout a bunch of you guys out. Whoever it may have been, appreciate you going into Tails on the app, in the App Store, and reviewing the app. I know a bunch of you shouted me out specifically. So I know some of you guys in here, maybe you're just lurking, but appreciate it. Those reviews were climbing. We're climbing in the on the sports apps over there in the App Store. And that goes a really long way. So if you're liking Tails, I already got a bunch of bets posted. Chris, there he is. I like Tails. It's fun and interesting. Yeah, and if you're following the right people, it's definitely profitable too. But got a lot over there already for today. We have a new trending topics tab that you'll love. So you could click in like Thursday Night Football, and the Explore page will just populate Thursday Night Football plays. Pretty cool, Spags, because then you can the AI maps it. You can one click. It'll show all the odds on the books you want. Click that, add it straight to your bet slip, and the job is done. So we're making strides, making moves over there. We have the app. If you want to go tails.bet, come follow me and everybody else over there. Turn on notifications, do it. But again, thank you guys for those reviews. If you haven't left a review yet, or even just if you don't have the time, a 5-star rating, massive, massive win for us and for you as well, because it's only going to help. The more we get out there, the better this platform and bigger it becomes, the more resources we can pour into it and just make it better and better. And I think the best free betting platform that exists. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and also the more people rate, the more people we get on the platform too, that will then sort of self-select, because you'll be able to see the results, and you'll get more winners on the platform to tail if you do give Tails a good rating. So win-win for everybody out there.
Yeah. All right. Look at that. D Shav. I hit 3 free parlays in a row this week with CDR betting on Tails. Yeah. Follow CDR. Follow the guys you want. We have leaderboards. You can go check the leaderboards and see who's crushing, who's trending, all of that. It's cool, man. It's really cool. Betting's fun. All right. So, Spags, captain spot. We don't need to spend an exorbitant amount of time here, because I think we broke down all of the most important players. We can just put a bow on it now. With Bo Nix, Bowers, Dobbins up there, the only guys in the double digits. Are you in agreement, or do you see it differently? Are there any guys you would like to get over the field on? Because I actually have one guy that I do want to get over the field on, and I'll talk about him after we get your thoughts here.
Yeah, I'm low on Bo Nix in the sim I ran today. Right before the show, got 14% Nix, Fields at 19. I would like to be above on Nix, just because I think the matchup fits him having the upside. Like we talked about at the beginning of the video, he has been fairly inaccurate in a way that I think can find its way to correcting against a Vegas team that's not particularly good in the secondary. So getting more Nix appeals to me. A little floored by how much Bowers is coming up to. It's a lot of Bowers. I get it. We just saw the upside. It does feel like you're playing into a lot of ownership for a guy that just had the biggest game of his career, basically, last week. And I love Bowers, but that does spook me a little bit in this matchup. But I think out of the top guys, the Knicks would be the one I'd want the most. And I have some low-owned guys we could talk about, but who's your take on the chalky captains?
Yeah, so, I mean, I want to throw out, though, that Cortland Sutton, to me, at 5% captain ownership on a slate like this, that's just a guy I actually want to get over on. It may sound counterintuitive after being like, yeah, well, Bo Nix hasn't been that accurate, and Cortland Sutton, not as many targets in the end zone as Troy Franklin, but Sutton also is the type of guy. He has easy 2 touchdown upside here. Like, he is a very good end zone target. We saw it last year. No one had, actually, I hadn't looked since like late last year, and I could pull it up again, Spags, but if he wasn't number 1 in end zone touchdowns, he was top 5. He's very, very productive in the end zone. And those things matter a lot to me if you're going to be moving the ball downfield. So, he's not, what's his price point at? I know he's not cheap, which is one of the reasons that, like 14.4, you're going to have to pay for him. But I still, what if Sutton just happens to have in a much more forgiving matchup than some of the ones they've seen in recent weeks where they were kind of able to do plenty of other stuff here? What if Sutton just goes out and has one of those Sutton games? And everyone's shitting on me because I am a big Cortland Sutton fan, but I don't know. I just think, he's the type of guy that, all right. So he was 4th in end zone touchdowns last year on end zone targets. End zone touchdowns would be weird. I feel like everyone would need to have that, but McLaurin, Mark Andrews, and Mike Evans were ahead of him, literally tied with Jamar Chase last year.
That's impressive. I mean, I think that for this year, and frankly, again, I'm getting the sense, I'm curious to see what, kind of do a read around various shows and see what people are talking about. But I'm curious to see how people approach things today, because it seems like this chat here on Stokastic likes Franklin as much as Sutton. And I would agree that paying up to be more contrarian, or maybe not more contrarian, but to just get different with Sutton, if people want to play Franklin more, and Franklin's $3K cheaper at captain, I think going to Sutton could be a logical move. And you mentioned the touchdown equity is strong. The deep targets are there as well. Franklin's getting 1.4 a game. Sutton's getting 1.3. And Sutton's been better with what he's getting. And he does get a little more air yards per target as well. So that does increase the volatility and the upside. Sutton's a strong play. The one that, I'll tell you what, I don't think anybody's going to play. And I do like the matchup. Evan Ingram, I think, is kind of interesting captain, because he never really has the same volume of snaps, really. But he is still running, 21 routes a game in general. The slot matchup's really good going against the Raiders. Actually, the worst defense they have right now is the slot. 0.5 EPA per target allowed there, 49% slot rate. Ingram is the guy. I think that salary is really low too. And people will play Sutton and Franklin, I think, enough. I think Ingram will be a forgotten man, and he could benefit from Mims not being in as well. Okay.
No issues there. Sutton only getting 2% more captain ownership right now than Evan Ingram, but also far more expensive. So I kind of like that. Last thing I'll say on Sutton, because I agree. There's a lot that could go wrong with Cortland Sutton. No doubt about it, right? I do view him somewhat similarly to Marvin Harrison, because public sentiment was down on Harrison and it's not up on Cortland Sutton. Yes, Harrison was a little bit cheaper, but I don't think he was that much cheaper, right? How much was Marvin Harrison? Do you remember where his price point was?
He was like 7,500, I think, and McBride was 9.
Was he really only 7,500 on a Showdown site?
I believe so. I mean, don't misquote me, because I could be pulling out my ass, but I'm pretty sure he was like 2K lower. Yeah.
Okay. All right. But still, I think Sutton's one of those guys that people just kind of, you don't forget about him, but you definitely can be out on him a little bit. And I'd be willing to take some shots there. That's all. I'll take some shots. Let me actually pull it up. Let me see what his price point was.
Harrison, I'm looking it up. Harrison's 8,400. So it wasn't that big of a gap. 8,400, McBride, 9K.
Right. 8,400. So not that big of a difference. Whatever. I'll have some shots. I at least want more than one lineup with Sutton. That's all I'm saying, Spags. I need at least more than one lineup in the captain spot with Sutton, because Dobbins could disappoint. Bowers, I love Brock Bowers, more than willing to get to Brock Bowers at captain. If he ends up being my most exposed captain, I won't change a thing. But Bowers in this matchup could disappoint. Nix could disappoint on the whole at his price point. Dobbins could disappoint. Would you agree that it feels like kind of a slate where everyone has a real path to being a disappointment?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, the workloads here like definitely lean towards Sutton and Franklin being your top guys, but it's not like there's Jamar Chase here. It's not like there's one guy who's commanding a massive
Right.
target share and nobody else is. I think that's where you have a lot of upside, a lot of ways to chop things up for a showdown. And it's real fast too, because I think this guy Mason in the chat's pushing back on Sutton. Sutton, not zone guy, Franklin zone guy. I hate when people say this stuff very confidently because it's usually not accurate. That's the case here. Sutton's actually been the best of the team versus zone. Only a 19% target rate, but 1.7 yards per outrun, 0.3 EPA. Troy Franklin earning targets exactly the same amount, 19.7% target per outrun, but a 1.3 yards per route run, negative 0.2 EPA. So nobody here is a zone guy, really. In fact, they're all arguably really bad versus zone, and it is a zone-heavy matchup. But Sutton's killing man this year. Sutton's getting a 32% target rate versus man and has been shredding guys. And usually your success versus man is a good indicator of how good you are as a player right now.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, you saw him against Derek Stingley on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Like, big man catch there for that touchdown, right? So, and Derek Stingley's no slouch. That dude's really good. Also, I saw a comment, and by the way, Spags, love you breaking it out. You had that hand.
Which people say it so confidently. It's like, if you're going to say it, just be right about it. And if you're not right about it, because whenever people do that, I check. And if they're right, I just don't say anything.
Yeah. I'm happy to shout people out when they bring up some good points for sure. But, there are instances too where we use such small samples. It's like, all right, well, like Big Kev saying Denver just spreads the ball around too much. They do spread the ball around, but Sutton and Franklin both have 20+% target shares, and they both have multiple games with double-digit targets. So while you don't have like a Puka Nacua Devontae Adams target share or an AJ Brown Devontae Smith style target share where everything's concentrated around a couple of guys, they do still have two primary pass catchers. And I don't really think that is debatable. But I agree it's not to the same extent as other teams where it's just force feed these couple of guys for sure. Anyway, any other thoughts on players we haven't talked about? We do have Live Before Lock. I'll be here tonight with Greg Ehrenberg. I'll have bets up on tails. We'll have DFS content on tails. We'll have the perfect lineup coming out earlier this afternoon. Spags will have another showdown show for anything we missed on his channel. Splash Play, is it Splash Play on YouTube?
It's at Splash Play Pod, because unfortunately I cannot, like you, I can't get Loughy. I can't get at Splash Play, unfortunately, so I'm stuck on at Splash Play Pod on Twitter and YouTube.
Okay, at Splash Play Pod.
I appreciate the plug.
Yeah, man.
We didn't talk kickers at all, and I do think on a slate where defense will be decently owned, kickers are noteworthy. A lot of ownership, though, coming to kicker. Now that I'm looking at it, Will Lutz.
Well, it's a great place to kick footballs too in Denver.
Yeah, definitely the long legs can pop up a little bit more here, but Will Lutz 30% expected owned. Carlson 21. Both guys in the sim coming up. Lutz 27%, Carlson 31. The sim is giving you kickers a lot, so I want to make sure we say it out loud. But honestly, pretty appropriately owned. Denver kicker and defense gonna be owned a lot, and I think you probably get people playing Broncos onslaughts more than they should today.
I'm with you. Here's a good way to do it before we get out of here. Just looking at lineups. Denver 5, Denver 5-1. Denver. Oh, okay. Vegas 4-2, 3-3. 4. Here's your Las Vegas 5-1. Bowers, Carlson, Geno, Dobbins, Raiders, Trey Tucker. I actually don't hate that.
I'll never hate flipping the build.
Yeah. You say flipping a build?
Yeah, where it's like everybody expects the Broncos to kick ass, and it's like, cool, this one has a high ROI, and you have a 5-1 for the Raiders.
For
always
sure.
To me worth that shot.
I mean, look at this one too. You're not going to like this just on paper, but Genty, Bowers, Geno, Dobbins, Michael Mayer, Raiders. The 5-1 Raiders builds, if this happens to do well, they're not bad. Check this out. Genty, Bowers, Cortland, Sutton, Geno, Jack Besh, and Raiders. You can actually make some Raiders 5-1s that aren't that bad at all. And you're not going to see a lot of people going to these today, Spags.
No, and that's the thing. That's why the sim grades them out so well, is that you really do end up on an island sometimes. And really on a Monday slate, I mean, you guys saw it, but like it didn't take a whole lot to get unique on that slate. It was Cowboys and Cardinals. Even me, I was like, you got to play defenses. I still only played one. And that's how this goes. Everybody's going to play Broncos defense today. If you play something that cuts against Broncos defense and you get it right, you're just going to be on an island. And that's, to me, what Showdown is more than anything. It's like, you're not really playing the best plays on Showdown quite as much, even though you still want good projections and you want good sim ROIs. But you're playing like, what happens? How do I win the most when shit goes sideways? Because it always does. That's every Showdown. It always goes sideways.
Always does, man. And if it doesn't, how many people are you duping, right?
Right.
Evan Ingram actually in the most duped lineup as captain. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Oh, man. I'm just a fish. I'm like, Ingram low owned, and it's fairly in this one lineup at least, not at all.
No. It's only I think the Ingram play makes a lot of sense. It's because look, it takes up 50,000, so it takes up the entire cap, and it's just jamming a lot. Jamming a lot of good players. So it's less Evan Ingram at captain and just the salary relief that he gets you, and then the lineup people jamming it and maxing it out. So that actually makes a lot of sense. You don't want to go cheap captain just so you can get to all of the expensive players and the popular players, because people do that all the time. Like that's one of the most popular builds, is to go cheap captain and then jam all of the studs. It's actually one of the worst builds you could do.
Yeah, really, whenever on a Showdown, if every player in your lineup is like a starter getting real work, it's almost definitely not actually a good lineup because of how much you're going to get duped, which is, again, the yin and yang of Showdown, and why it will drive you insane sometimes. But that's, why you have the most upside. If you put in one entry in a Showdown, I think you have the best shot at winning money in anything in DFS, because of just how, if you cut away from the cloth and you get that right, like you really do have big upside.
All right, we'll close it out with this. CMOS asking Spags, Broncos or Lutz in the flex?
I mean, they're both going to be pretty similarly owned. I think Lutz would be a little more contrarian, but I think those are both pretty chalky.
They are, and they're both perfectly fine.
Honestly, you're not going to do wrong with either. Just that's going to be how everybody thinks tonight. I could feel it, Loughy. It's going to be, and the Broncos might kick their ass and whatever, but like it's going to be just everybody playing Broncos kick their ass, and like,
I know,
how do we get silly with it with the Broncos kicking their ass?
I know. And it is a short week divisional game, Spags.
Yeah, and maybe Jacoby Myers is a locker room cancer. Maybe it's addition by subtraction there, as opposed to subtraction by addition with Tyler Lockett.
Maybe it is. It all just kind of balances itself out. Anyway, appreciate you guys as always. Catch you over on Tails for the free DFS plays. Josh will post those. I'll have the free bets, already do, up there, and a lot of other great stuff throughout today for Thursday night. Go follow Spags at Chris Spags. Me at Loughy, not Loughy_D on Twitter. We chopped off the D, Spags. Never thought I'd see the day, but it is 2025. So who's surprised? Have a great rest of the day, guys. We'll see you back here for Live Before Lock. Bye-bye.